I'm going to go ahead and say this first stuff in the beginning because normally no one's watching and I'll post and it won't be like I'm ranting the same thing all the time. Some people can't hold 2 or 3 ideas in their head at the same time. You know, when I was a child, my brother Josh would often tell me that the general population is not as smart as I think they are. And I didn't believe him. I really didn't believe that me and my brother, it didn't matter if we scored higher on the standardized test. It didn't matter if we was in the top percentage or top 10%. None of that ever mattered. I still didn't feel like everybody was as dumb as my brother was telling me that they are. You know? And over the years, I've been sort of saddened to find out that my brother wasn't arrogant. He was just correct. It was just true. The intelligence is not equally distributed amongst the population of people. And a lot of people really cannot grasp concepts that I would think was just basic concepts. You know, like people will say there's more white people on food stamps than black people, but totally not understand that in the context that there are a lot more white people than black people. So just because there's more white people on food stamps than black people, it doesn't mean that as high as a percentage of total white people are on food stamps as the total percentage of black people. As a percentage, more black people, you know, number-wise, you know, this number is bigger than this number. But when you consider that as a demographic, black people are not net taxpayers and white people as a demographic are net taxpayers, then where'd the money come from the EBT? It come overwhelmingly from white people, not black people. And then you consider, and I don't remember the statistic, but I'm not going to say it, but it's more than 50%. It's more than half. I think it's more around 70% of all black people are on food stamps. And you don't have to have this high percentage of white people to be on food stamps, to have more white people on food stamps than black people. And like Charlie Kirk, when he's talking about the diversity hires, people are not able to hold more than in their head at a time. They just see, oh, they missed the whole conversation and they're like, oh, he said he's worried about if he sees a black pilot, if they're qualified. He's not saying that under a meritocracy, where you get the job based on merit, that he would be worried about a black person being a pilot. He's saying that in the context of with diversity hires, where you have a quota, where you've got to hire so much percentage black people, whether they're the most qualified or not. Okay? And I know most people get that. A lot of people don't. And the people that don't get it, there's 2 reasons they don't get it. One of the reasons is they've already made up in their mind that Charlie Kirk's a racist. There's no amount of explaining is going to matter. They're going to just ignore the evidence and they're going to go into cognitive dissonance and they're just going to believe it and they're going to look at that out of context quote and they're going to say that confirms my bias so it's cognitive dissonance. It's not that they're not smart enough to understand, it's that they're not willing to understand. And then you got another group of people. They're just actually too dumb to understand. They can't hold those 2 ideas in their head at a time and see how they relate to one another. It's just more than they can grasp. They can only see this number is bigger than this number. Some people can't. Some people just really can't. I do think most of it's cognitive bias, though. Cognitive dissonance. You know, confirmation bias. I'm still not at the point of accepting that much of the American population is too dumb to understand such concepts as per capita. But really, it's starting to look like a lot of people are too dumb to understand the concept of per capita. You know, I had somebody, you know, Charlie Kirk believed that race was a social construct. But there is more genetic difference between grizzly bears and polar bears than there are between European white people and African Americans. Europeans and Africans are more genetically different from one another than grizzly bears and polar bears. Grizzly bears and polar bears can interbreed and have children. Black people and white people can interbreed and have children. But when it comes to bears, we say they're a totally different species. And when it comes to humans, we say that race is a social construct and it's not even real. And that's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, Charlie Kirk was way more to the left than I am. And Charlie Kirk would have told you that load of BS. He would have told you he believed that race was a social construct. He thought that the only differences were skin deep and didn't matter, and that really ideology was the primary driving force of behavior was culture and ideology. And so the way he believed it is that if you give African Americans the same opportunities and the same education as white people, the same percentage of them would be qualified to be pilots. He was never racist. He wasn't even a race realist. He was one of those race blind people that he had, you know, so basically I guess they've changed the definition of racism from meaning someone who hates someone because of their race to someone who acknowledges racial distinctions. And if you're going to define it that way, I acknowledge racial distinctions, but I don't hate people of other races. I think it would be asinine to hate someone just because their skin's different or their facial shape's different. But I also think it's asinine to pretend like there's not racial differences. Obviously there are. That would be like if you were to say there's absolutely no difference between a polar bear and a grizzly bear because they can have children together. There's so much genetic differences between the two that we've called them different species. And mathematically, there's even more genetic differences between blacks and whites than grizzly bears and polar bears. So I think Charlie Kirk was naive and that he was wrong. But what I find disturbing is that there's so many people willing to label him as a racist when he did not even believe in race. Charlie Kirk believed there was only one race, the human race. Now they keep changing the definitions of words. So race used to mean ethnicity. Now they've changed race to mean species. And they say there's only one race, the human race. They're saying there's only one species of human. But originally that's not what they meant. So they keep changing the definitions of words because the data and the information and the truth would prove them liars, would prove them wrong. So they just keep moving the goalposts. They keep changing the definitions of words. And so when Charlie Kirk is making that comment about the impact of diversity hires, and he says something about, black, like less than 15%. Lesbians are a minority of the population, less than 1%. I think probably even less than 0.5%. So the example he's using of a black lesbian is an extreme minority. So you don't have that many people to pull from if you're looking for someone who's qualified from a job. And if you're trying to get if you want as many straight white people as pilots, as black lesbians, you're going to have to turn down more qualified people and hire less qualified people to meet the diversity quota. This is not him saying, now I believe different than Charlie Kirk. I believe that there's an intelligence gap between the different races. Charlie Kirk didn't believe that. He thought they were just lacking education. So like, I mean, y'all are accusing Charlie Kirk of being a racist and the type of racist that hate people because of their race. And he did not hate people because of their race. He was just smart enough to understand concepts like meritocracy and per capita. And a lot of people aren't. All they see is a white man saying he would be worried about the qualifications of a black pilot. He's talking about with diversity hires. He's not talking about that he would be worried about the qualifications under meritocracy. He's not saying that there aren't black people that are qualified to be pilots. And he's not saying that under a system of meritocracy where they give the best job to the best qualified, he's not saying under that system he would be worried about a black pilot. But after they did the diversity hire quotas for pilots, there were more planes falling out of the skies and more women pilots crashed than male pilots. So I don't know. You know, people like me, we didn't agree with Charlie Kirk because we actually are the alt-right. You know? And then y'all hate him because you accuse him of being what we are. And he's not even that. Which the alt-right is not really like a cohesive group of people. And it's a label that gets slapped on a lot of different groups of people, ranging from anyone that realizes that there are different races to people who hate different races. It ranges from people who are democratic socialists to people who are free market capitalists, anarchists. Like there's all kinds of, basically, if you're not an Israeli supporting war hawk Republican and you have conservative social values, you're going to be labeled alternative right. So, you know, there's the type of right that's like George Bush, you know, think like, if you're not like George Bush in your politics or George Bush Sr. or Ronald Reagan or Rush Limbaugh, like if you're not a neocon, if you're not a Israeli supporting, want to go to war with all Israel's enemies, if you're not that type of Republican, then they say you're a far-right extremist. Whether any of your views, the only reason those views are considered extreme is because leftist views have become what is central. You know, in my day, or in my younger years, everyone would have thought of Donald Trump as being a liberal, not a conservative, not a centrist, but a straight up liberal. You know, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton used to be against gay marriage. Obama used to be the deporter in chief. You know, the political norm has shifted extremely to the left. And no one on the right is really on the right. Like all of your Republicans are just Democrats pretending to be Republicans. They don't conserve anything. They constantly enlarge the government and the debt. They constantly are war hawks. They do not stop the liberals from doing anything. When they do have political power, they appoint liberal judges like Bush Sr. Or they have the House, the Senate, they have everything. And yet they still let the same things keep on going. They're just to pretend. You know, like George Bush Sr., he pretended to be a Republican. He pretended to be against abortion. And then he put liberal judges on the Supreme Court that were all pro-abortion. It's just a con. None of them can want to conserve any type of traditional morality whatsoever. And both parties represent Israel, not the American people, Israel. The Democrats and the Republicans. And basically, if you're not a neocon, if you're not a Israel supporting war hawk Republican, they're going to call you alt-right or far-right extremist. If you're not a communist, you're a far-right extremist. Hey, Ravenheart, bless you. Hope you have a really good day. I love your channel. A lot of people do. A lot of people, it's got that good vibe to your channel. It's a good channel. I'm glad it's there. And it comes in your videos will pop up in my feed all the time, and so in my life, I've watched the definitions of words change. I'll give an example. The word literally has began to mean figuratively. It's begun to mean its complete opposite. People don't say literally to even mean that something is literal anymore. Another word like that, dang, it was in my head, but it popped out of my head when I talked about that word. But it just happens a lot. Like, it reminds me of George Orwell. He wrote a book, 1984, and he imagines a dystopian future where the government pretty much controls everything. And he talks about history being edited in real time. He talks about history being edited in real time. And you can see that with Wikipedia. You can see how Bill Clinton had all these different references and connections to Jeffrey Epstein, and then it's edited, and all those references are removed on Wikipedia overnight. You can see this with Google Quick Answers, how they push a certain agenda, and you can see how, and it's really amazing how well Orwell predicted the future. He even predicted people looking at their screens all day. He predicted there being smartphones, and he predicted them eliminating words from the dictionary to control the masses. And I got a phone call. I got to make this phone call. My mama's calling me. It might be important. They always call me at